Okay, so we're going to start up part 3 here. And in this part we will be doing shaders. Basically, shaders do everything from coloring to modifying the terrain displacement, adding fake stones. You can do a lot of things with them. So the first thing we're going to do is create a grass looking color, and just kind of get an idea where we want to put our grass and vegetation. And to make it, that's just a plain color though. So what we're going to do is we're going to assign, create a new color shader and make it a power fractal, and then we'll go to that, and I like to apply the low color and just kind of tweak it up a little there, and that gives us a nice looking, well, somewhat nice looking grass color there. And let's add some water. So water in this scene is added over here, and you add them as lake objects, and you can have as many lake objects as you want, really, and they basically go by a radius and the water level. Now find out what water level you need to be at so you can actually see the water. If you look down here on the Y, you'll see my mouse is hovering around like 378, around there. So we'll do negative 370 and let's see where the water ends up. So I guess that's good. Yeah, I'm just going to be concentrating on teaching you guys how to use this stuff, not really make the best images here. So we have our water in the scene now, but as you can see, the transparent water, you can see the fake grass that we just made right there. So we're going to create some mud to put on top of that, or well, we're going to put it on top technically, but it should be going below. But we're just going to kind of cheat because we're going to be removing the grass layer later on. So first of all, we need to create another shader, and this time we're going to pick a brown mud color here, kind of muddy, and we're going to use a power fractal on it. And this one we want it to stay pretty dark because I mean it's mud. So now with shaders, and later on objects, you'll learn how to do this too. The altitude constraint and the slope constraint can do so much for you. So what we really want to do is we want to limit the maximum altitude here, and then again looking down at the Y down here, we kind of just place our mouse where we want it to do. So negative 374 is about where we're at. So if we type in negative 374 and wait a second, and it just disappears though. But that's because we have the max alt fuzzy zone. That's basically how far it goes to be fuzzy. So we're just going to put a 1 right there for right now, and that's a really small fuzzy zone. And our mud should be coming back. Is it coming? Huh. Let's try 0 here. Oh. Huh. Okay, I know what's wrong. I forgot to use Y for altitude. If you're going to be using your mouse like that, you need to make sure you click that Y for altitude there, and there's our mud. So we now have our mud down. And so now we need to do, in the back, mountains aren't all made of grass and vegetation. So let's add some stone and snow. So we're going to add another surface layer here. Pick a stone color, kind of a dark color here. Also give it a power fractal, and then we're going to adjust its altitude, and we're going to limit the minimum this time, and we're going to check Y for use Y. And that's a pretty good height to start off with. Generally you can see it starting to render here. And then so we're going to add our snow, and so we'll set it to white. And oh yeah, if any time you're having trouble finding some shader, you can hit enable test color, and it'll just change it to this fuchsia, pink, whatever you want to call it, and it'll become very easy to spot. That allows you to get some placement done correctly. So again, we're going to limit the minimum altitude by Y altitude, and instead of, the other one was 200, so let's check up here what's around here, like 900. So I'm going to start at 900. I'm going to give it a fuzzy zone of 300 meters, and I'm going to limit its slope a little probably. I'll do that to the grass too. Where's the grass? We're going to limit the slope here. I'm just going to leave it on default for that one. I'm going to limit the slope on the snow here, and I'm actually going to kind of just raise that up a smidge, like 70 or so. And then I'm going to save. I'm going to go over here to render settings. Now you have the option to do a quick render, which will do this really small box. It'll do it real quick. It'll be done like before you know it. And then there's also a full render, which is usually the higher settings. And I mean, any of them you can change the settings to whatever you want, but generally I leave the quick render alone while changing full render whenever I want something slightly higher quality. You can change the width and the height here. You can create like choose an aspect ratio and then lock it so you can increase it for your final render, make it nice and big. Some important quality settings and such. We have detail. Basically never go above the setting of 1 there. 0.9 and 0.8 are perfectly fine for final renders. One of the major problems with people new to Terragen is they choose settings that are just way insane. Like you have no need to go that high quality because the lower settings are quite high quality themselves. So for AA settings, like 3 is good for just some basic stuff. 5 to 8 are usually around what final renders use. The same thing with GI relative detail and sample quality. That's the lighting, like how realistic it looks. 2 is actually a pretty good value. Like 3 increases it quite a bit. And I've never really used above 3 on renders because it increases the render time a lot and the quality difference is barely anything. The blue radius is usually used for animations and fixing lighting issues. Super sample prepass is good if you have a bunch of small objects, from what I understand. It helps get proper lighting done on them. And GI surface details, if you're real close to, or it really depends on your scene. Sometimes you just gotta try it, see if it looks better to you. If you like it, use it. But just as a warning, it takes a lot longer to use. Crop region allows us to crop the region that we're going to be rendering into whatever we want, and that's easy to enable and disable. Under extras, we have the pixel filters, and I'll have a download available thanks to Oshan going through and doing every single render setting on a scene of his. And basically it'll just be a bunch of those images. You can just flip through them and see which one does what with bloom and without the bloom. And the rest of these settings you really shouldn't mess with too much. The maximum threads here you can change. If you have like a quad core and you only want to use 3 while you're rendering, you can change it to 3 so that way you still can use the rest of your processor. And for subdiv cache, if you ever have a render just crash and die, odds are your settings were too high. But one of the other options you can do, besides completely lowering them, is to set the subdiv cache to 200 and also to check pre-allocate. That sometimes fixes some of the issues. And sequence output is good for alpha maps. You can use it for a micro exporter to export LWO terrains, and also when you're doing a sequence, which is just an animation, it'll render all the images, name them, and put them in a folder that you want them to. So that's important for animations mainly. But generally you'll just be changing these settings right here. You might crop region occasionally, and sometimes need to change the pixel filter to what you want. Now I'm going to render a full render, and you'll see a quick preview of it in a second, and then it'll be the next tutorial.